Ms. Arias, please take the stand.
Please stand for the jury.
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and counsel. Mr. Nurmi, you may continue with direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Jodi, before we took our lunch break, I believe we were talking about a point in time when you and Daryl had purchased your home in Palm Desert. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you had also told us that Daryl's stance on not being married persisted all the way to the point in time when you were buying this home, right?
Yes, I think there was a time when he may have wanted another child. He implied that, but we never actively tried to get pregnant or anything like that.
Okay. So given that Mr. Brewer was not interested in getting married and you had your separate lives, your separate bank accounts, that you got the mortgage together, what was the plan on purchasing this home? Were you going to live in it for years? What was the idea?
Ideally, if everything had worked out and if the housing market had continued to increase, which of course it didn't, I think June was the year it peaked, or the month it peaked, then we would have stayed in it for 2 years and either rented it out or flipped it, sold it and tried to reinvest in another house.
So you didn't have a plan to be permanently together, whether married or not, you and
No,
Daryl?
actually I had hoped to maybe buy him out on the house, if possible, so that I could own it, and then I had ideas of maybe making it into a business investment property.
Okay. At this point in time, were you still in love with Mr. Brewer?
You mean while we owned the house together?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Did you want to marry Daryl Brewer?
I probably would have, I would have married him. I don't know that, he was pretty clear that he didn't want to get married, so I didn't allow myself to entertain that idea, but I could see myself spending my life with him.
So, as it relates to this period, this plan that was hatched, I guess, or actualized in 2005 to buy the house and stay together in it for a couple of years and make money, did that plan work?
No, it didn't work at all.
Why not? What happened?
The day before we signed on our house, our mortgage broker called and switched up the terms, and she said it really fast, and we were like, okay, whatever, we just really wanted the house. So what we failed to remember or consider was that in 1 year, the mortgage would index with the current rate, and so our mortgage payment jumped from $2,200 a month up to $2,800 a month, and it was a lot more than we were expecting.
And were you still working 2 jobs?
Yes, I was working 2 jobs, yes, in Palm Desert.
Okay. So your half of the mortgage then would have been $1,400, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that didn't include any of the other household expenses?
No other bills, just the mortgage alone was that.
Okay. And were you, even between these two jobs, were you making the kind of money that you could afford that sort of payment?
I think I might have been able to. I would have been, I think, living very impoverished if I would. It didn't quite cover the mortgage. I came up short every month.
So how did you keep paying the mortgage?
I was hoping to earn more money or get another job, but what I did in the meantime, assuming that I would be able to pay it back, is I started paying the mortgage with my credit cards.
Was the value of the home, what was happening with that?
The value obviously wasn't increasing anymore. I didn't really look into the value of the home I was living in, but I was paying attention to sale prices in my neighborhood, and they were going for almost $100,000 less at this point than what we closed on our home for. So it was pretty apparent that the market was kind of switching back to a buyer's market.
And how long were you and Daryl able to maintain the home with this increased mortgage payment?
I can't remember exactly when it mortgaged, but it went south pretty quickly as far as being able to maintain the payments. I think the last the full half of payment that I made was in November 2006. And then by December, I couldn't quite get to $1,400, and then by January, I couldn't pay. I think I paid even less, and I think that was the last time I was able to even attempt it. And so by then, we decided we were going to just let the property lapse into foreclosure.
Okay. Moving back a few months to the fall of 2006, what was going on with your relationship with Mr. Brewer? Were you still happy, or describe that for us?
Well, I still loved him, but I think that summer I had a lot of things, just kind of reality hit. We weren't really progressing in our relationship. I was no longer 22, I was 26 now, so I began to question, where I was going with my life. Was I going to have a family with this person? And so it really didn't seem that way. And at the time, my goal was marriage and children, at least someday. And that's not something you can just go out and get, something you have to kind of invest time in. And so at age 26, I was more than halfway through my 20s, and I wanted to begin focusing more on that. But we had the house together, so I wasn't sure how that was going to work. So I became, I guess, a little more disenchanted with the relationship. He wasn't really focused on it. He had a lot of stress going on with his life and his bills and his son and his ex-wife and that kind of thing. So we were going in different directions. We had different visions for our futures.
You mentioned personally the things you wanted on a personal level, but you had also talked about this home purchase being a business venture for you, obviously one that wasn't doing so well, right?
Yes.
Did you have other ideas in mind with what you wanted to do with your life from a professional standpoint?
Well, I was looking for other ways to get on my feet financially so that I could invest in real estate, which was going to be a main form of my income, so I could do other things that I enjoy, which would also be forms of income, such as photography. And I didn't see myself yet making a career out of art, but it was more a hobby than a career goal, but possibly that. And I wanted to get my art into galleries. I enjoyed the weddings that I had done at Ventana, but I enjoyed photography more than coordinating them, so I wanted to become a wedding photographer also.
Now, before we go any further into some of your ventures, we talked about a little bit throughout the course of your life you call it your spiritual or religious thinking. You talked about your two prior boyfriends. At this point in time in the fall of 2006, where was your thinking spiritually, religiously?
At that time, I considered myself very open-minded spiritually as far as religions go. I find good things in all kinds of religions and truths in all religions, or things that resonate with me. And so I didn't have a particular or specific religion that I was identified with, or that I considered to be my religion. It was kind of open and broad, but I still considered myself spiritual.
Okay. Now, you mentioned looking for a financial mechanism, if you will, to allow you to make money while you worked on your art and your photography, that sort of thing, right?
Yes.
Did you find one of those, or what you thought was one of those?
Yes, the year before, I went to work at California Pizza Kitchen one day, and my manager asked me where I saw myself in 5 years, and the first thought that jumped into my mind was real estate, something involving real estate. I think I mentioned that. He said he was going to be retired, which I thought was kind of a bold statement because he's about my age. And so he gave me some information, and it was the company that was then called Prepaid Legal. I think there was a magazine and a DVD, and he was really excited about it. And I thought, okay, well, he asked me to look at it, review it, and I told him I would. But it wasn't anything that really got me excited. Initially, I took it, that day at work, I put it next to one of the computer terminals, and I forgot about it, and it stayed at work for several weeks, almost a month, before I remembered to finally take it home.
Okay. Did you watch that DVD?
Not at that point. I took it home. I never looked at it. Well, not never. I didn't look at it for a long time. It went into a closet, just a storage closet. And about 6 months later, maybe 5 months later, I was cleaning it out. I was just cleaning things out, and I came across the DVD, and I wanted to throw it away, but I didn't want to throw it away before I at least knew what was on it. So I stopped what I was doing. I popped it into the DVD player and sat down and just gave it my attention for that time so that I could at least throw it away knowing that I knew what was on it before I threw it away. And I just liked what I saw, and so I called him back. And
Called who back?
the person who gave it to me, I called him back. He said he wasn't in the business anymore, but he could refer me to his upline, and so I got his number, and then I called that guy. And he told me he wasn't in the business anymore, but that he would still get me some more material on it. And so I waited a few days and didn't hear back from him. So I finally just went to Prepaid Legal's website and submitted my information to get more information about it. I think I was able to sign up on the website. No, I don't think I signed up then, but I submitted my information, and a lady named Michelle finally called me back.
And this lady named Michelle that called you back, did you know her?
No,
prior
I didn't
to
know.
her call?
Not prior.
Okay. Was this someone who was and you were in Palm Desert at the time that you made this call, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this Michelle, was she in your area?
She was. I think what happens is when you submit information, at least this is how it used to be, you submit your phone number, or maybe by zip code or phone number, the referral goes to somebody within your area. So she's in the same area code as I am, but a different city. She lived in Hemet.
Okay. Did you meet with her, or tell us how that...
She called me. She was actually at one of the conventions. It was March 2006 that I went onto the computer, and during a break she checked her email, and she got notice of my information and called me right away and told me where to go to sign up. So I went online and I signed up, and when she came back from convention, we decided to meet at a restaurant. I think it was in Palm Desert or somewhere halfway.
Well, let's before you get too far, what do you mean by you signed up?
I didn't know what that meant at the time, but she just instructed me to go online, purchase the membership, and then also pay the fee to become an independent associate with the company.
Okay, so you bought their product, and then you pay an additional fee to sell the product,
Yes.
right? That's what being an associate means, to be able to sell the product?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And why was it that you were interested at this point in time of becoming an associate of this company?
I liked what I saw on the DVD. It was presented very well by two executives in the company that have had a lot of success and are very eloquent, and they were able to explain it in very simple terms with simple math, and it just seemed like something that was that I might have success with.
Okay. So you meet this individual, and are you then involved in selling the product as well, or how do you get involved in that?
Well, she sent me away with tons of supplies, DVDs to pass out to other people, magazines, marketing materials, and I really didn't do anything with it. I just took it home and it sat there and collected dust for a while.
And home, were you still living with Mr. Brewer at that time?
Yes.
And were you still in a boyfriend-girlfriend type relationship at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And just, I keep saying at that time, do you know about what month and year we're talking about?
Well, I was still in March 2006 at this time when I took things home, and like end of March, because she was at the convention and then she came back.
Okay. So these materials, you're telling us they sit. Were you actively trying to sell memberships? What were you doing in regards to Prepaid Legal?
Not at that point. She had called me in the summer. There was a team event at Daniel Summit, Utah, and it was scheduled at the beginning of July that year, and I was scheduled to go to my cousin's wedding, and I wanted to build my wedding portfolio, so that was much more important to me, obviously, and to be with my family for that event. So I didn't go to I didn't go to the company event that she invited me to, but I went to my cousin's wedding, and then the summer went by, and she called me in early August and asked if I had bought my ticket for the convention, which occurred in September. And I told her I had not, and she was very adamant that I go. And she told me, you can carpool with us. It's Las Vegas. It's not a far drive. So kind of at her behest, I bought the ticket reluctantly.
Okay. In September 2006, were you talked about working 2 different jobs to pay the mortgage, that sort of thing. Was that going on in September of 2006 still?
Yes, I was going to go back to work at Quisto. They closed for the summer for a few months, and the owners leave the desert. They go up to Monterey, actually. And then it reopens mid-September, or maybe it's early September, whenever school starts there, because he had children. So around that time, the restaurant reopens, and I still had my position.
Okay. You also talked earlier, I guess, about the time that you purchased the house. You had $10,000 to $12,000 in the bank. Was that money still in the bank in September 2006?
No, that money was long gone.
Okay. So what is your financial situation in September 2006?
It's paycheck to paycheck, struggling. I mean, we're not out on the street or anything, but I gave up all of the extra things that I liked, Starbucks, just things like that, just little things that would chip away at your monthly income. Everything was very sparse, just whatever we could make ends meet.
And your relationship with Mr. Brewer, is this still going fine, or are we still at this dead end that you were describing earlier?
It was something I sort of dreaded because I knew it wasn't going to last, but we hadn't discussed it. I don't know where he was with things. I figured he was kind of in the same realm. I didn't realize his feelings were as deep for me as he said when he was on the stand. We had that conversation about a year later, about 8 months afterward, where he told me that, which surprised me. I just kind of figured he was in another place and I was in another place.
Okay. So you purchased this ticket for this convention, and this was in Las Vegas?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a specific location for this event?
Yes, it was held at the MGM Grand.
So do you then, did you go to this convention?
Yes.
Okay, and how did you get there?
I drove to Hemet and parked my car at Michelle's house, and we took her. She had a brand new Honda Accord, so it was real spacious, and she and Lenore and I all drove to, the three of us carpooled to Las Vegas.
Okay. And you mentioned this person, Lenore. Was this a friend of yours or a stranger to you at the time?
She became a friend. That was the first day I'd met her, and she was also a recruit of Michelle's.
Okay. So you go off to Las Vegas, and these people are virtually strangers to you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Michelle and I would talk occasionally and text. I was comfortable around her. She was almost my mother's age, maybe slightly younger. So I was comfortable around her, but I didn't know her very well.
And to this point in time, it sounds like you hadn't been active in the company at all. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Other than buying a membership?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
true.
All right.
Wasn't really looking forward to going, but I figured I should give it an honest shot.
Okay. Did you know anyone else that was going to be at this convention besides your two companions?
I'm sorry?
Did you know anyone else at this convention besides the people you were traveling there with?
No.
Okay. Well, tell us about what happened when you arrived there.
When we arrived, we checked in. There was just a swarm of people everywhere with all their luggage. They were all other associates that were checking in. It's a convention of about, I think at the time there were about 12,000 people, so it's in Canada and the US, so all kinds of people from all different walks of life descend onto the MGM Grand for this convention. And not everyone stays at the MGM Grand, but everyone stays around in Las Vegas. So there were a lot of people checking in. We got to our room. We just kind of relaxed for a little while and then walked around, got lunch, and then later got dinner.
You said our room. What was the accommodations? Were you sharing it with these two ladies?
Yes.
Okay.
I
And
think her mom was also, I can't remember, I think there were four of us in the room.
okay. Now, did you get there on the day the convention began, or were you there earlier than the convention?
The convention is on a Friday and Saturday, and we showed up on Wednesday night.
Okay. And what to your understanding anyway, what were you to do at convention? Were you attending classes, attending meetings? What was your purpose in being there?
I didn't understand. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been there before. She just told me it's going to be a great event. It's going to get you fired up. I had never attended a convention, not that convention, so I didn't really know what to expect.
Okay. And how long were you going to be there?
Well, we were going to leave Sunday, so 5 days total.
Okay. Is that when the convention ended?
No, my understanding was that it went all day Friday, all day Saturday. And there were smaller team events outside of those.
Okay. And was there a particular team that you were to be involved with at this convention?
Michelle was on Team Freedom, so when she recruited me, that made me part of Team Freedom. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. It was Team Renew. Sorry, there's a lot of different teams in the company. Team Renew, I think, was the name.
Okay. And tell us about what happened. You said you went in your room, you relaxed. What did you do next?
We just wandered around a little. We went out to the swimming pool. There were a lot of people there. I didn't bring a bathing suit. I didn't even think I was thinking business, so I felt, I don't know, it was 100 degrees and everyone was out in bikinis, hanging out, bathing suits, splashing around, so I felt awkward. I was just standing there in my business clothes, you know.
Okay.
I was getting introduced to a lot of people. I couldn't really keep track of everyone. There were a lot of names.
Okay. And you say you had another day before the convention started?
Yes, there was Thursday, and then on Friday was when the convention started.
So what did you do on Thursday?
On Thursday, Michelle, Lenore, and I just went, I don't remember the whole day, but I remember we got dinner at Applebee's across town. We just were having dinner. We just killed time just doing things, running around town.
Okay. Were you meeting more associates though as well?
Yeah, before we went, before we left the MGM Grand, we walked around and met more people, and I was introduced to more people that she knew.
So there weren't any meetings or anything on Thursday, is that right?
Wasn't aware of any, but I later in that evening, I learned that there was a banquet that occurs the night before convention, and that's the executive director banquet.
While you were at this convention, did you ever meet an individual by the name of Travis Alexander?
Yes.
Describe for us where you were and what was going on when you met Travis Alexander.
On Wednesday night, this would be early September 2006, Michelle, Lenore, and I were with her mother and I think 2 other associates, and we were all sitting around this round table at the Rainforest Cafe, which is inside the casino in the hotel. We were having dinner, and we were finishing up dinner, paid our check, and we left. We didn't leave the Rainforest Cafe. We sort of stayed in this kind of lobby area. I don't know how else to. We were right outside the entrance, still indoors. And there's just tons of people everywhere. A lot of them are prepaid legal business associates, so I'm staying close to Michelle, because she's the only person I really know. And I'm meeting other people that are on my team, and she introduces me to people that are in my upline and things like that. And there was just a crowd of people everywhere, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw somebody walking toward me, kind of fast-paced, and I noticed it was a guy, and I thought he was going somewhere because he looked like he had a purpose, so I stepped out of the way because I thought he needed to walk past me, but he stopped right in front of me and stuck his hand out and introduced himself.
And was that Travis?
Yes.
What happened from that point in time?
I shook his hand and tried to just log the name because there were a lot of people that I was meeting that weekend. So we just kind of milled around the outside of the Rainforest Cafe a little longer, and then our group began to wander throughout the casino, just past restaurants and sports bars and the slot machines and all that kind of thing.
And you say your group, does that mean the people you went to the restaurant with?
Yes.
And just so we're clear, Mr. Alexander wasn't part of the lunch you had, or dinner, excuse me, at the Rainforest Cafe?
No, he wasn't.
Did he then follow your group around the MGM?
He made it a point to walk with us. He was also on Team Renew, but more like laterally. He was obviously higher as an executive director as far as position in the company, but so he knew all these people. He had met them all before. But as we wandered throughout the casino, he made it a point to walk next to me and keep me engaged in conversation.
Okay. Was this late in the evening when this was going on, or?
It was dark out, I think, but I don't recall it being very late.
How did you part company with Mr. Alexander that evening?
Well, after wandering around, we kind of wandered back to the lobby where there's a big golden lion statue, and we took pictures there with some people. And then after a while, I kind of noticed that I had been ignoring everyone else in the group, and just he and I were talking. And at one point there was a lull in the conversation, and it kind of felt like everyone was staring at us, so it was a little awkward. So I sort of began to talk to other people.
Okay.
And sorry.
No, go ahead. Tell it.
Okay. I don't remember how we parted, but just said goodbye, and Michelle, Lenore, and I went back to our hotel room. And I didn't really think anything of that meeting, but I think it was Lenore pointed out that she thought maybe he liked me, which made me think differently, I guess, about reflecting on our conversation, because I didn't get that vibe from him.
Okay. Did you speak, after you parted company, did you speak to Mr. Alexander again that night?
Not that night, no.
When did you next speak to Mr. Alexander?
Well, while Lenore and Michelle and I were at Applebee's having dinner, Michelle's phone rang, and she answered it, and I only heard her half of the conversation, and then she hung up and asked me and just told me that Travis wants to know if I would go to the executive director banquet with him.
And we heard a little bit about this earlier, but from your perspective, at least, perhaps I should say it this way, your perspective at the time, did you even know what an executive director's banquet was?
No, when Michelle mentioned it, that was the first I'd heard about it.
And what did you come to understand that it was?
Eventually, I came to understand that it's kind of it's a banquet where everyone dresses up. The women are dressed to the nines, the men are usually in tuxedos. It's kind of an upscale banquet with multiple courses. And generally there are speeches and things that other people give at the banquet while you're dining.
Okay. Now, once this invitation came to you, let me ask, were you in any way prepared to attend such a banquet?
No, I turned him down and said I didn't want to go because once I found out that it was something where you have to dress up for, I didn't bring anything for that, so I said thanks anyway, but no thanks, because we were on the other side of Las Vegas. The banquet started in less than an hour, and I just didn't see how I could get a dress, get back there, just rush hour traffic, all in that span of time. So.
And this would have been Thursday evening?
Yes, this was Thursday night.
Okay. Did you end up attending that banquet?
I did.
Explain to us how you went from the point in time when you said, I don't have anything to wear, it's across town, it's in an hour, to actually attending the banquet. How did that happen?
Well, after I said no, Michelle was she encouraged me. She said it would be a very good experience for me. There are lots of executives that go that you should meet. I think her idea was to get me inspired to become more active in the company and get me more excited about the company. And both Lenore and Michelle were very encouraging, saying that you really should go. This is a very good opportunity. Not everyone gets this opportunity. So I kind of just said, okay, well, we got to find something for me to wear. So we ran around town. I think Kohl's was near Applebee's. I didn't know if there were any suitable dresses at that store, but we went in there, grabbed a few things off the rack, tried them on. Nothing was really working out, so I was thinking I was probably going to call him back. Well, actually, I did call him right before that and said, okay, I don't have a dress, but I'm going to look for one, and I'll let you know. And so I was in the dressing room at Kohl's. By that point, he had my cell phone number, and so he called me and said,
Did you end up buying a dress at Kohl's?
no.
Did you end up obtaining a dress to wear to this banquet?
Yes, his friend packed an extra dress, and she was the same size as me, and I guess she heard about his predicament and said that I could wear that dress.
Okay. Did you find it strange that Mr. Alexander was asking you to this banquet after only meeting him the day before?
I didn't really think of it as strange. I think the whole week was kind of strange. It wasn't really what I was accustomed to, so I was just going with the flow.
Okay. So, tell us how you obtain this dress and what happens as you're going from Kohl's to the banquet.
After I realized there was a dress at the hotel, we dropped everything at Kohl's, hopped in the car and got on the freeway, and it was very slow traffic, but we just made it all the way back to the MGM Grand, and we rushed up to the hotel room where the dress was. I changed, and Travis met me there, met Michelle and I there, and we walked across the complex over to the ballroom where the banquet hall was being held. I'm sorry, where the banquet was being held, in the ballroom.
Whose dress was it that you were borrowing?
His friend's wife, Sky Hughes.
And had you known Miss Hughes prior to coming to her room and borrowing her dress?
No, I had not met her.
And you mentioned his friend Chris Hughes, being Sky's husband. Had you met Chris Hughes prior to this event?
No.
When you went to, well, let me ask you this. Was Mr. Alexander there in the room when you changed and got ready?
I think he showed up. I was in the bathroom changing.
Okay. Tell us what this banquet was like for you.
It was nice. I was somewhat accustomed to that level of dining because of my serving experience, but I was always the server, not the guest. So, and I was very familiar with just how the courses run and, table etiquette and that sort of thing. So that was not really, it didn't move me a lot, but what was interesting was all of these people that were there and how successful they all were. And that kind of opened my eyes to the reality that you really can be successful in this company, and it's not just some fly-by-night company or any kind of get-rich-quick scheme or things like that.
Any kind of what was that?
Like a get-rich-quick scheme, that's not what it was.
Okay.
It was legitimate.
It sounds to me like then that you were, to some degree, getting intoxicated by the success you were seeing. Is that fair to say?
I don't know if intoxicated would quite be right, but it definitely made a big impression on me.
Impression how?
It stuck out in my mind. Travis also challenged me. He said every person I take to the executive. Okay.
Nobody approach her. Ms. Arias, did people at this banquet encourage you to become more involved in prepaid legal?
Yes.
Was Mr. Alexander one of those individuals that encouraged you?
Yes, he encouraged me the most of everybody.
Okay. Tell us, in terms of, you talked about the dining and things of that nature. Did you have any idea when you went to this banquet, or did you learn during the course of this banquet what an executive director meant in terms of income level?
I had an idea. There were people there giving they're called ring speeches. That means that they earned $100,000 within a one-year period. So when you do that, you earn a ring to symbolize that or to, show that. So that's a huge milestone in the company that a lot of people strive for. Travis did not have his ring. He came close. At one point he said he made almost 80 grand. Sorry.
I couldn't hear the last statements. Restate the question.
How,
Phone, oh. To your right. Thank you. You may proceed.
to your understanding, how did Mr. Alexander have the ability to invite you to this executive director's banquet?
He wouldn't have to be an executive director to have tickets. So that meant that he qualified for that position.
And to your understanding, what did qualifying to that position mean?
It meant that he had a certain level of production in the company as far as selling memberships. I believe that was my understanding of it.
Okay. But you also mentioned something about a ring. To your understanding at this banquet, was that something different than being an executive director?
Yes, because you can be an executive director and still not be earning $100,000, or actually anywhere near that, is my understanding now.
Okay. Did Mr. Alexander give a speech at this banquet?
No.
Did other people that he was with or people that he knew, did they make speeches at this banquet?
People made speeches, and he may have known them, but I don't know what their relationship was to him.
Okay. The level of income of the people in the room, it seemed like from what Mr. Searcy told us, that was pretty well known. Is that correct?
Judge McDowell, Mr. Searcy may or may not have said.
Restate the question.
Did you have an understanding, or was there any publications that talked about how much money these people were making?
Yes, some of the people are known to, well, you get a ring when you earn $100,000. When your income reaches $250,000, you get a diamond embedded in the ring. When your income reaches $500,000, you get 2 diamonds. And when your income reaches $1 million a year, you get 3 diamonds. So, and then there are people who earn beyond the $1 million mark. I don't know if there is any kind of outward symbol for that or not.
Okay. But you were learning this while you were present at this banquet, right? All these figures of these income figures, right?
Yes, people were mentioning their lifestyle in their speeches. It's incorporated their lifestyle, how things changed, how they struggled, or how they're having success now, and they throw out numbers.
Did that speak to you in terms of your current situation? Or your situation as it relates to September 2006?
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What sorts of, in general, not specifically what they said, but what sort of statements did they make about the lifestyle in terms of with prepaid legal, how long it took to make money, those sort of things?
Their lifestyle, they no longer struggled, was the impression that I got. They no longer worried about paying the bills. They no longer worried about where their money would come from. They were more concerned with things of a higher nature, I guess you could say, like philanthropy, or who they could turn around and bless now that they've been blessed, and constructive ways they could now use their income to better society.
And that was something that also spoke to you?
Yes, very much.
After this banquet, what did you and Mr. Alexander stay together?
After the banquet, we left the banquet room, it was like a big ballroom, and everyone sort of mills around outside and takes pictures with people. And so Travis took me around to a few different executives, and I got my picture taken with a bunch of people and him. And we just did that, and after that I changed out of, we went back to the hotel room, and I changed out of the dress and back into regular clothes.
Okay. Without telling me specifically what he said, during this evening with Mr. Alexander, did you get the sense that he had a romantic interest in you?
Not really. He wasn't really flirting with me. He wasn't giving off that vibe. I did get the impression that he was trying to impress me because he was talking about income, and but he was talking to the guy next to him, but he was saying it very loud. So I got that impression, but not that he was trying to like woo me, if that makes sense.
Okay. during that evening, did you learn anything else about Mr. Alexander, where he lived, his family, his work history? Did you learn things like that about him?
He didn't talk about his family, but the night before he said he was from Riverside.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
That he was from Riverside.
Okay.
He told me he was a 49ers fan, which I kind of didn't believe because he was from Southern California and most people like the Chargers in that area. But it had to do with Steve Young. I guess it was a member of the church and a very good quarterback. He asked me about the UFC, if I was familiar with it. That was an interest he had, and I was familiar with it somewhat.
And UFC, is that an acronym for something?
Yes, it's an acronym for Ultimate Fighting Championship.
And is that what we would call cage fighting?
Yes, cage fighting, no holds barred.
Okay. And it sounds like you mentioned the church. Did he convey his faith to you that evening?
Not that evening. We went to convention on Friday. He had invited me to sit down on the floor where the executive directors sit. It's a bunch of chairs set up, so it's closer to the stage instead of the stadium seating.
And just so we're clear, is this the day after the banquet, right?
Yes, this is the Friday morning. I had a ticket, which was several seats up. It was with Michelle. And I got a text message from him that said there's an open seat down here if you want to sit closer to the stage.
Okay. And from your understanding, this would be an area, sounded like what you were telling us, is an area that you wouldn't otherwise be able to sit. Is that?
Yes, you needed a special pass to get into that area.
Okay. And do you know why?
It's reserved for executive directors only, so you have to be qualified for that position in order to get into that area.
Okay. And this, and I'm sorry, what did you call this? You said it was a meeting, or what was this event Friday
It
morning?
was, I guess I would call them sessions, like there's morning session and an afternoon session.
Okay. And for those of us who haven't been to one of these sessions with Prepaid Legal, what does this involve? Was there a huge number of people?
Yes, it fills up. It's a big stadium. I don't know how big, maybe football size, maybe not quite that big, but it's pretty huge.
Well, just so we're clear, we're not talking the size of a football stadium, right?
No,
Like
but
the
it holds
field?
it holds well over 10,000. I think it can hold like 15,000 people
Okay. All right.
with the floors.
Okay, so please go on then.
So that was filling up. I decided to make my way down. I don't remember how I got there. I think he met me at the area and took me over to where the seat was. And I went and sat down there, and the event starts with the national anthem and then the Canadian national anthem because the company is in both countries. And then just different things get started. It's kind of mixed up. There's training, entertainment. So I mean, it's not entertainment, but their speeches. I think they use the term entertainment because it's entertaining training. Do you know what I'm saying? It's entertaining training, I guess you could say. Anyway, we just looked at these. I just watched these speeches and took notes in my journal and took pictures, that kind of thing.
What were this, and I'm not even going to try to repeat the word because I'm sure I'll butcher it, but this entertainment / training, what was that, from your perspective, designed to do?
It's designed to, well, you get more training. Sometimes there are new products that they roll out and they train on that, but at the same time it is designed to not be boring also. It's something that you usually riveted to. There's a lot of note-taking. Some people come out and just rally up the crowd. They're very good speakers. They have a lot of energy. The ring speeches that were heard at the night before also set on stage again so that all the associates that were unable to attend the banquet also get to hear those speeches. They're generally very inspiring because they're success stories.
Okay. And is this meeting in this large facility, is this something that lasts all day?
Yes, we start, I don't remember the time, but we start somewhat mid to early morning, go to lunch, break for lunch, and then come back in the afternoon until late afternoon.
Okay. Did you have lunch with Mr. Alexander?
No, that day I didn't. I went to get sushi with Michelle.
Okay. When you go back to this meeting, do you then return your seat near Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he invited me one more time, so then after that, I just stayed in that seat for the rest of the convention.
Did the entire convention, you said the rest of the convention, did the entire convention take place in this one large room?
Yes.
Okay. So you spent the entire 2 days sitting next to him at this convention?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have dinner with him that what would be, I guess, Friday night?
Not Friday night. No, we didn't.
Okay.
I don't really remember Friday night, actually.
Okay. Tell us about Saturday then.
Okay, Saturday I was again getting lunch with Michelle, and we started texting each other sort of back and forth. By this point, it was pretty clear that he liked me more than friends. He wasn't being overtly flirtatious, but he was being very friendly. And I decided that, well, Michelle had told him that I had a boyfriend.
Did you have a boyfriend at the time?
Yes, I was still with Daryl.
Did you know, to your understanding, was Mr. Alexander aware of the fact that you had a boyfriend?
Yes.
Overruled, you may answer.
Yes, he was aware.
And you were just telling us that you got a sense of Mr. Alexander having an interest in you that wasn't strictly business, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned you were getting that sense. What things did he do to give you that sense?
He was texting me after the banquet. He said really nice things. You're a great girl. Okay, sorry.
Not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, it's the effect of the listener.
Overruled, you may continue.
He was friendlier and friendlier, but not inappropriate. But after I learned that he already knew I had a boyfriend and he continued to act that way, I thought it would be, I thought I needed to pull him aside and tell him that I have a boyfriend so that he didn't get the wrong impression from me.
Okay. And did you do that?
Yes.
And when was that?
That was Saturday night. We did have dinner at the Rainforest Cafe again. The whole Team Renew met. They reserved the upper floor of the Rainforest Cafe. We all had dinner there and then hung out in the food court after that and just talked for a long time. And then we went. I texted him earlier and said, I'd like to talk to you later.
She's the declaring error.
Rephrase the question.
What motivated you to, or I shouldn't say that, how did you arrange this conversation with Mr. Alexander?
I indicated that I would like to talk to him when the time was appropriate, alone, and he said okay. So we were hanging out in the food court, and he asked me, do you want to go for a walk? And I said I thought this would be my opportunity to talk to him, so we started going for a walk around the casino. It was very late. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning at that point, and we started wandering near the stores. They're all closed at that point, so there are plenty of people over in the casino area where all the slot machines are, but this end of the building was kind of empty. So as we walked, I explained to him that I had a boyfriend. And I told him I liked him, but I'm in a relationship. And I explained a little bit about the state of my relationship. I didn't go into a lot of detail. I just,
What do you mean by you explained to him the state of your relationship?
I didn't go into a lot of detail. I just said I'm not sure where it's going, but he's my boyfriend. That's what I said. I mean, I'm monogamous, so I'm with Daryl. I'm with Daryl. I'm not with anybody else.
Okay. Did he respond in any way to what you were saying?
He smiled, and he was aware that that's what I was, well, he assumed that's what I was going to talk to him about. And so at that point, it was clear, I thought, and I was able to relax a little more and just be friends. And so we found a park bench. It was kind of like a park bench against a wall at that end of the building, and we sat down and ended up talking for a few more hours just about everything.
Did he end up commenting on the what you should do regarding your current relationship?
Yes.
Did he advise you that you shouldn't settle for what you were dealing with?
Objection, leading hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer yes or no.
Yes.
While you were out on this bench, was this outside or inside?
Indoors.
And you said the two of you sat and spoke for a couple hours.
Yes.
Did you talk about religion or faith during that period of time?
Yes, the topic did turn to religion.
Did he share with you his membership in the Mormon church?
Yes, I knew that he was Mormon at that point. Michelle said it as if to warn me, like it should be a warning. I didn't know what that meant because I wasn't familiar with the Mormon church. I didn't know, I just assumed it was another Christian denomination, like any other, and I didn't really, I mean, I'd heard about Mormonism over the years. Mormonism is the butt of a lot of jokes on South Park, and some people just seem very antagonistic toward Mormons. I didn't understand why.
Sustained.
Did you have concerns about being around Mr. Alexander because of his membership or practice of the Mormon faith?
No, not at all. Someone's religion wouldn't affect that at all.
Did he express a desire for you to learn more about his faith?
No, he implied it, but he didn't openly start proselytizing or anything.
Okay. During this conversation at the bench in the MGM, did he ever attempt to kiss you?
Not there on the bench, no.
But he did that night?
He leaned in very close as if he wanted to kiss me, and he was licking his lips, and he was staring at my lips, and like he wanted to kiss me, but he didn't.
And where did this occur?
On the elevator.
How close to you did he get?
Well, we got onto the elevator, and
Objection, we don't scope. She was asked how close did he get?
Sustained.
How close did he get to you?
he got right in my face. I would say 4 inches, maybe 5.
Okay. And this wasn't forced based on the size of the elevator, right?
No, the elevator was empty.
Okay.
At one point, there was someone else that stepped on, but
Large elevator,
yes.
and he got within 4 inches of your face.
Objection is the answer.
Overruled.
Yes, he put his,
Objection, we don't scope.
Sustained.
Once he got within 4 inches of your face, with his face, was that right?
yes.
What did he do?
He licked his lips and said, "I wish you didn't have a boyfriend."
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you kiss him?
No.
Did he make contact with you? Physical contact?
Yes.
How?
He put his arm around me when he walked me back to my hotel room.
When he walked you back to your hotel room,
Yes.
did he attempt to kiss you again?
No, it seemed very obvious to me.
Objection assumes that he attempted to kiss her the first time. She said he did not.
No, actually, that's not what you said.
Overruled. You may answer the question.
He made it very obvious that he wanted to kiss me, but he was restraining himself. It was very obvious restraint.
And did he attempt to invite himself into your hotel room?
No.
And did you still have roommates per se for the hotel room?
Yes, Michelle and Lenore, and I believe her mom were inside sleeping at that hour.
And this would have been late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is this the last you see of Mr. Alexander when you're in Las Vegas?
No.
After that evening, when was the next time you saw him?
Sunday morning, they had what's called a breakout, and it was in a small theater near the MGM Grand, within walking distance. So that team, I think it was Team Renew, maybe a few other people not on that team were present. I saw him there. I didn't sit next to him. And then that,
Objection, the other scope. She was asked whether she saw him.
Sustained.
Where was he when you saw him?
he was at the theater, and I was at the theater. And then he invited me to,
Objection, the other scope.
What did he invite you to do?
he invited me to go to, it was a buffet of some kind back at the MGM, where he and a few other people were having breakfast.
Okay.
Or
Did
lunch.
you accept his invitation to have breakfast?
Yes.
And you said this was Mr. Alexander and other individuals, right?
Yes.
Okay. Were these people you knew previous to this point in time, or were these more individuals you were meeting?
I believe I'd met them over the weekend. They were people on my team and in my upline.
Okay. The friends that you came with, you drove from California with, were they at this breakfast?
No.
Where were they, to your knowledge?
I don't know. I don't know where they went after the breakout.
Okay. This breakfast with Mr. Alexander, was that the last time you saw him?
No. Well,
At the convention?
no.
Okay.
I stayed with him till he left, I think.
Okay. And what did you do after breakfast, or did he leave right after breakfast?
We walked over to the front desk where he checked out, and we walked out to the front where there were valets, and he was loading stuff into the taxi and getting ready to go to the airport.
Were there arrangements made for you two to have contact with each other again? How did you leave things with Mr. Alexander?
Yeah, he indicated he would call me. I didn't really expect him to call me, but that's kind of where we left it. We hugged.
Did he attempt to kiss you before he got in the taxi?
No.
When did you leave the convention?
Michelle and Lenore and I checked out a few hours. We got lunch at the Rainforest Cafe again, and then we checked out after that.
Okay. And I presume you drove back to California?
Yes.
After you arrived back in California, you were still living in the home with Daryl, right? back to work, or what did you do when you got back?
I did have to work. Just back in the same routine, except Travis began to call me.
At this point in time, when you came back to California, to Palm Desert specifically, did you still consider Daryl Brewer to be your boyfriend?
Yes.
Were you still sexually active with Mr. Brewer after you came back from the convention?
No.
Why not?
I don't recall specifically why. Oh, well, because we broke up, I guess that would be why. But we didn't have sex after convention. I remember prior to that was the last time that we did.
Okay. Prior to the convention?
Yes.
And you talk about breaking up with Mr. Brewer. When did you do that?
Well, I got back from convention on Sunday, and I broke up with Daryl on Thursday of that week.
Why did you break up with Daryl after you came back from the convention?
The relationship was already, like I'd mentioned, was kind of fizzling. I loved him very much, but it wasn't going anywhere. At least we had different visions for our futures. Because it had been like that from day one, it took me 4.5 years to really just let it go, because I really loved him. Also, on Wednesday night, I was invited to go out to some of Travis's friends' house. And I knew Travis would be there, and I didn't want to... I'm kind of like, I one guy at a time kind of person, so I didn't want to have anything overlapping, and I knew there was an interest with Travis, and I was beginning to sort of develop just the seeds of interest with Travis, and I didn't want to be in a relationship when I went there, because I didn't want there to be anything hindering. I didn't want to feel guilty for flirting or sitting next to him or doing any of that. I wanted to be out of a relationship so that I could not cheat on anybody, if that makes sense.
Would it be correct to say that then, from what you're telling us, Mr. Alexander motivated you to break up with Daryl Brewer?
The things he said made a big impression on me. It wasn't just about relationships, it was about my whole life, my career, and the direction of my life. So it made me step back and take a look at where I stood and where I was going. So that was part of the reason.
You mentioned something that I think is interesting. You said you came back with a different vision of the future. You came back from the convention with a different vision of the future than when you left, right?
Yes.
Okay. Describe for us, if you could, what was your vision of the future before you went to this convention in September 2006?
It was kind of nebulous. It wasn't very clear. I just knew that I wanted to... Basic things. I knew I wanted to have kids someday. I knew I wanted to be married someday. I knew I didn't want to struggle paycheck to paycheck. I didn't see myself living a life of excess, but definitely being able to pay the bills and provide for a family somewhat, or just at least be a joint contributor to the household. I saw myself getting more into photography, and hopefully I still had hopes of being successful in real estate eventually.
And when you come back from convention, what's your vision of the future?
I still had those desires, but leaving convention, I can't really describe it. It was painful, actually, because I knew that there was a lot of change on my horizon at that point. I couldn't continue with the same life that I had been living, because it's kind of like my eyes were opened to a lot of things that I had been ignoring. And I didn't, the idea of change was uncomfortable. I really loved Daryl, but I couldn't continue with him.
That sounds more about things on a personal level Well, what about your vision for your future on a professional level? Were you believing, leaving this convention, that prepaid legal was going to make you rich?
The idea of selling the membership was uncomfortable to me. I believe in the product, and but just hitting up my friends and family seemed awkward. So I had that desire, but I couldn't quite see myself going out and doing it, at least yet. So
Okay.
Michelle invited me to an event a week later, and it kind of reiterated some of the things I had seen at convention, and I continued to go to these events. From then on, I became more active as far as plugging into those events and how to sell the membership and how to have success, and just the general vision of it became more crystallized in my mind.
Was there a general point in time then when you decided that to, for lack of a better phrase, go all in prepaid legal in terms of your future?
I had periods in the company where I was very productive, and the money I made was surprising. I didn't realize the compensation plan was as generous as it was, and I liked that, but I found it difficult to maintain that level of production every month.
Were you still working other jobs?
Yes.
Did you eventually get to a point where prepaid legal was your only job?
No.
How much did you make in a year with prepaid legal, and you'd say your most productive year?
I really didn't make anything for several months at a time, and then one month I made approximately $1,700, and the next month I made, I want to say, a little over $1,000. So those 2 months were really good.
How much time a week were you spending investing in your prepaid legal business?
Not nearly as much as I should have been. They have goals in the company, things that they'd like you to commit to, such as talking to other people about a minimum number of people per day or per week. And I don't remember them now because it's been so long, but just different. They're called 10 core commitments, at least that's what they were called then. And they tell you that if you just do these things systematically, then success follows.
How many hours a week were you working at the restaurant?
At that time, I was still full-time at Cuisto, but eventually I quit that job, and then I only had one job.
Okay. You broke up with, I want to go back to this conversation you had with Daryl. Did you guys sit down and the two of you talk about the relationship?
Yes, I guess I wasn't as specific as I thought I had been. It sounded like he didn't have he didn't get that impression, but we sat down. I actually had a conversation with him. We sat at our kitchen table, and I just told him, in essence, I told him, I know we're not getting married, but I'd like to have kids someday. And he said, okay. And I said, well, I think maybe we should, I might want to start pursuing that goal. And I know that you don't want to pursue that goal with me, and that's okay. I know he was moving back to Monterey. I said, I know you're moving back soon. So I kind of just left it at that. I don't think it was very specific, but he was nodding his head like he understood what I was saying. So I was under the impression that he understood that we were no longer together at that point. I mean, not in a committed relationship where we are boyfriend-girlfriend.
And you mentioned doing this prior to being invited to spend a weekend in California with Mr. Alexander, right?
I actually did it right after I was invited, but prior to going.
prior to you going to California, or prior to this breakup, had you had any other interaction with any officials from the Mormon church in your home?
Not at that point.
So tell us about when was this trip to California or somewhere else in California to take place?
This would have been the weekend after convention.
And where was it? How many hours from you was it?
I don't remember the drive, not far. It was in Murrieta, California. Either Murrieta or Temecula. I think Murrieta. And I'd say an hour and 15 minutes maybe on the drive.
And whose home were you going to?
I was going to Travis's friends, and their names are Chris and Sky.
Is that Chris and Sky Hughes where the dress came from?
Yes.
As it relates to, at this point in time, did you have an understanding where Mr. Alexander lived?
Yes. I knew he lived in Mesa.
Okay. Did you feel comfortable going to Murrieta to spend this, I guess it was a couple days, in this home of people you barely knew?
I had met the Hugheses at convention, and they seemed like very nice people, so I was a little uncomfortable, but not in a bad way, just shy. But I didn't feel unsafe or anything like that. I just, there was going to be a party there. I believe Mr. Hughes' brothers were moving to Colorado, so it was sort of a going-away party, and Sky's brother also returned from his mission. So it was kind of and then all the Prepaid legal associates were there, so it was kind of a party with multiple purposes. We were all just there gathering. It's like a social gathering.
Was it your understanding, you said a social gathering, were you there as one of the party guests per se, or were you there as Travis's date?
Just a party guest.
Did you spend a lot of time with Travis over those few days?
Not at first. I got there while the party was in progress and hung out for a while. Michelle was there, so I felt comfortable a little bit, and eventually she left. It had been discussed ahead of time that, and this was on a Saturday, this party, that I could stay the night. They had an extra bedroom, and they wanted me to attend church with them in the morning. So I agreed to that, and Travis actually wasn't there at the party. He was late, and he showed up after almost everyone had left.
Did you spend time what would have been Saturday evening before church? Did you spend time with Mr. Alexander on Saturday evening?
Yes.
Was it just the two of you, or were there other people involved?
At first it was Travis and I. We were sitting on an oversized chair, and Chris and Sky and one other guy named Jeff. I can't remember his last name at this point. We were all sitting in the living room watching a funny video that Travis had made or filmed.
At this point in time, had you kissed Mr. Alexander?
No.
When did you first kiss Mr. Alexander?
We all went to bed, and he came into the bedroom I was staying in. I assumed there was probably going to be some kissing or some kind of talking or hanging out. We had talked every night that entire week. So that's when we kissed.
I want to clarify too as well. You just said something. You said you talked to Mr. Alexander every night. What time period are you referring to?
The time from the Monday after convention till Friday night, because he showed up Saturday.
Okay. So he called you after convention every single night?
Yes, that.
She didn't say he called or they talked.
Rephrase.
How did you and Mr. Alexander wind up communicating all these nights between convention and his invitation to you?
Well, I was at my home in Palm Desert, and he was at his home in Mesa, so he called.
Okay. Did he call you on your cell phone or a home phone, or
My
do you
cell phone.
recall? Okay. And about what time of the day, if there was a consistent time of the day, was he calling you?
The first night he called around 8 o'clock, and then toward the end of the week it began to get a little bit later, not inappropriate late, maybe just 9:30, a little closer to 10. He learned my schedule, and I usually worked in the afternoons, so it wasn't a big deal that he called that late.
What was he calling about?
We just talked mostly about, well, he told me a lot about himself and his dog, his religion, his mission, his friends. He had lots of funny stories he would share, and he wanted to know about me. He wanted to know about Daryl. He wanted to know just different things about my life.
Okay. These conversations you had with him over these days after the convention, is that part of what you meant by his words encouraging you to break up with Daryl Brewer?
Will you say that again? I'm sorry.
You talked about how some of the things that Travis said to you encouraged you to break up with Daryl Brewer,
Yes.
right? These things that he said to you that encouraged you to break up with Daryl Brewer, were some of these things said during these phone calls he was making to you?
Yes, just encouraging me to never settle for mediocrity was really what it centered on. Relationships, careers, anything. Also, when he found out Daryl's age, he was making fun of him.
What do you mean making fun of him?
Just that I was dating grandpa, things like that. You know, just little jokes. And I mean, I didn't really find it funny, but I didn't get overly offended or anything. I just said he's not like that. And, you know, I described him as handsome and, you know, like that.
Okay. What at this point in time was it about Mr. Alexander that encouraged you or helped maybe push you over the edge, so to speak, to break up with Daryl?
Like I said, some of the things he said helped me to gain a different perspective and step back and take a look at my life. And I realized things weren't going anywhere. If it probably weren't for Travis, I may have just continued on like that until Daryl moved, and who knows. But knowing that I wanted to hang out with Travis that weekend, and I didn't want to, I've always been faithful in my relationships, and I didn't want to change that now. So I decided to break things off with Daryl so that I was just free to hang out with Travis without, you know, feeling guilty that I was sitting next to him, or if it led to kissing or something like that. It wouldn't be something that I would feel bad about.
We're going to take the afternoon recess at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, please be back in the jury room by 3:30, and we will start promptly at that time. Please remember the admonition. You are excused.